Hello, Earthlings. Welcome to First Contact Radio. Welcome back to a new week. Let's jump into our cosmic weather for today, starting over at spaceweather.com. The solar wind has slowed down. We're now back to the 300s, 323.2 kilometers per second. Our planetary K-index has gone back down to a 0, which is quiet, expected no higher than a 1 within the next 24 hours. Our chance of flares has dropped considerably, back down to 1%. That's for M-class and X-class flares. And a very small percent chance, actually 25% chance, there's going to be some sort of geomagnetic storm going on in the mid-latitudes, but higher latitudes gets a bit higher, about 30%. And we have a notice here, chance of auroras. NOAA forecasters estimate a 30% chance of minor geomagnetic storms on the 30th, that's today, in response to a possible glancing blow from a coronal mass ejection. The CME is from last Friday's off-center X-flare, high latitude. Skywatchers should be alert for auroras. So check the skies for there. Here's a shot from Brian Whitaker, a pilot flying over 34,000 feet over Greenland, when he saw the moon shining down on a vibrant blanket of auroras. That's a pretty cool shot right there. Alright. And moving right along astrologically, we're still with the same sun sign. We're going to be Aquarius for a while. Aquarius, the water bearer. Water, emotions, feelings, those are the kind of things that come up during this phase of time. The Aquarius, the water bearer, is also about us learning the lessons of balancing. So we're both in the conscious and the unconscious, using both parts of our mind, of our being, to understand issues. So look at things from a whole perspective is what we're taught, and with that wholeness comes the idea of the Aquarian age, the new age, a new beginning, because if you are operating from a place of wholeness, you can operate much more effectively than if you're not operating from a place of wholeness. And the moon today, our unconscious, you could see it's in between signs. We're going in between Aries and we're moving into Taurus. So we're right in that in-between phase today. Tomorrow we'll be there. So that's where we're at today. Taurus is an earth sign. Aries is a fire sign. So energetically we're going from fire to earth. And we're in that in-between ground today. The moon phase is making its way back up to a full moon. We're almost to that halfway point, 45% full. And on the dream spell calendar for today, it's a white crystal day. White crystal day guided by a wizard. The phrase for today is, I dedicate in order to communicate universalizing breath. I seal the input of spirit with the crystal tone of cooperation. I am guided by the power of timelessness. And on the Gregorian calendar, Monday, January 30th, 2012. Alright, so a lot going on in the world, my friends. We got the primaries, which is coming up tomorrow in Florida. We're going to start things off today with Ron Paul. He was on the State of the Union with Candy Crowley. Let's listen to this interview. Let me put it in a blare you could see it properly. There we go. Alright, let's listen to this interview, hear what they had to say.
His State of the Union. There are more delegates at stake in Florida than any of the previous contests, so major momentum will come out of this winner-take-all state. Naturally, Ron Paul, a road less traveled kind of guy, spent the week in Maine.
Hey, what am I doing in Maine? Why I'm not in Florida? I came to get delegates. That's what we're doing here.
Truth is, Ron Paul doesn't need to be in Florida to have a presence.
Now we have Speaker
Well, the debt is certainly an important issue, and you can hear it from the Ron Paulites who are here cheering tonight.
And that's the intrigue of the Paul campaign, maximum commitment by voters in the face of minimal chances. His support now is too small to be a threat to Romney or Gingrich in the short run, but large enough to be a factor in the long run. And if Ron Paul shouldn't win, What's the price for his support? The Texas congressman joins me now from his home state. Thank you, Congressman. I just want to take a look at your strategy at this point, which is to go to these caucus states where we know your passionate supporters will show up and spend a nighttime talking politics. Where do you see a state where you can really break through and come in first?
Well, you know, after spending 2 days plus up in Maine, I was very encouraged. The turnouts were fantastic. Usually overflow crowds, tremendous enthusiasm. The other candidates aren't paying much attention. The interest was phenomenal. I think that's a real good place for us to break through.
So you think you could possibly win in Maine when that caucus comes up?
Yeah, I really do. We did pretty well 3 years ago, and we weren't nearly as well organized. And Romney's been popular up there, but less so right now. So I would say that we have a very good chance. We're going to have an excellent showing. And I don't know how many candidates really like to say, I am going to be in first place. Most of us don't do that. I guess some do it, but I don't think that's very healthy. But I do really believe we're going to do quite well there and a very good chance of winning.
This is not just a road less traveled. This is also a rough road for you on the way to the nomination. So difficult to put together enough delegates to actually win the nomination when your concentration is on just the caucus states. If it becomes apparent at some time along the road before the June end to the primary season that you can't get enough delegates to win, do you see yourself dropping out, or do you see yourself going all the way to the convention?
No, I think we'll continue, and it is a rough road, but the rough road isn't, presenting our case. The rough road is competing with, establishment money, the big money. You know, when you talk about not a million or two, and we can raise those millions, but we can't compete with tens of millions of dollars for each individual state, and that's what came up in Florida. You need a lot of money, so it's a money game, and I think that's one of the things that frustrates a lot of people. But no, we're going to stay in and see what comes of it, and who knows what will come of the other two candidates. You know, there's been lots of ups and downs, so maybe there will be some downs, and we might be able to pick up the pieces.
You surely, there is always that. This has been a surprising primary season already. If you get to the convention, and you intend to go there, as I understand from your answer, and if you have a large chunk of delegates, which is quite likely, what do you want in exchange for your support?
You know, I really have never thought that through. I don't have a list. If you do A, B, and C, you're going to give support. I don't think people quite understand that I don't control things. I deliver a message. It gets people enthusiastic. But if I leave the fold and say, well, now that we have these, I'm going to deliver these votes. We don't even think in those terms, and I don't think the people that have supported our cause think that way either. But, I don't know how to pan out and what the discussion would be. I'm sure, if we have the delegates, which would be on the margin, somebody's going to be talking to us, and I have no idea how that conversation would go.
So without speaking for your supporters, speaking only for yourself, if you look at your three rivals now, could you endorse all of them? Can you see your way clear at where they stand at the moment on these issues? Could they get a Ron Paul endorsement?
Well, it would be difficult, but they're not fixed on their beliefs. They vary, and, they have their ear to the political noise that they hear. And, and I kidded the other night, in the debate, Newt is, coming around on the monetary issues and really, playing up and trying to appeal to us who believe that money should...
Do you think he's doing that to appeal to your supporters, or do you think he's doing that because he believes it?
I think... I don't know what's in his heart or his mind, but I think the politics of all of it reflects the fact, even if he believed it and thought it was still a crazy idea to quit printing money when you need it, he wouldn't say it. But evidently, he probably has a belief that it does make sense, and there's a political bloc out there. So, and then I kidded. I said, well, I got you coming on the right way on money. Maybe I can get you to come that way on the foreign policy and not want to fight so many wars that are undeclared. And, of course, he chuckled a little bit, too.
Let me ask you, Herman Cain, who, dropped out of the race but had a Tea Party following of some measure, at least early on, has endorsed Newt Gingrich. How significant do you think that is?
Probably not too much. I think sometimes, we were identified with the beginning of the Tea Party, and yet the Tea Party is not a Tea Party. I mean, it's all over the place, and everybody's claiming they're Tea Party. How somebody like Newt Gingrich, who's been in politics all the years, an insider, and claim that he's leading the Tea Party movement, that's, to me, a little strange. But there is no one movement in the Tea Party. It actually started during our campaign 4 years ago. But it represents a significant number of people who are frustrated with the process, as well as Occupy Wall Street. See, I talk to those people as well and try to bring them together because it's the frustration level that is so high. And I think that's one of the things that has energized our campaign, because our meetings and rallies that we have are made up of Democrats and independents and frustrated Republicans and new voters. Everybody knows about the new voters coming in that are enthusiastic and aren't very pleased with what they're offered by the other candidates.
Congressman, I want to ask you to stand by for us a minute. Coming up, policy with Ron Paul, including his reaction to President Obama's strategy on Iran.
Let there be no doubt, America is determined to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, and I will take no options off the table to achieve that goal.
We are back with Congressman and Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul. Congressman, you heard going into our break the president saying he would take nothing off the table when it comes to Iran, which is code for, of course, I'll use military force if I have to. He got a rousing bipartisan applause for that. After Iraq, after Afghanistan, 2 wars that all the polls show Americans have tired of, does that surprise you that he got such a warm ovation for that statement?
Well, I think they applaud the goal. I mean, that would be my goal, too. I don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. It's just the approach. I mean, if you just say that I'm ready to invade and commit an act of aggression and go in and take over that country, if nothing is off the table, when they say nothing is off the table, they're even talking about nuclear first strike. So I would think that the biggest danger is our overreaction. But if the people hear that in context, that there's other ways to do it. If people understood what sanctions meant and that maybe dealing with them in a different fashion, they take one thing off the table, and that is talking to them. And so I would think that if they understood that sanctions literally enhances the power of the Ayatollahs and undermines the Iranian people, because I have contacts with some of the Iranian people and Iranian Americans, and they like what I say and they don't like this idea of the aggressive approach because it brings out the strong nationalism, just as, 9/11 brought us, our people together in a nationalistic way. And this is what happens over there. So he needs to add something to it. But he's already taken off the table, and too many of the Republican candidates, they take it off the table that you can't even talk to them. But my argument is that when the Soviets had 30,000 of these, we didn't take talking to them off the table, or even the Chinese. We started talking to them and started trading with them, and the results were much better. So I think unfortunately they have taken something off the table, and we ought to reassess this aggressive approach to them.
If you became President of the United States, who would be your Secretary of Defense?
I haven't thought that through. I'm sure there are plenty that I could consider, but I haven't been in the mood to start picking and naming individuals.
Let me move you to the state of the economy. The president got his chance to talk to the American people and give his version of what the State of the Union is. When you look at the economy, had you been at that podium on Tuesday night, how would you have described the state of the economy?
Well, I think the state of the economy of the world, because I think we're all involved in this worldwide because it's a dollar reserve standard that created this worldwide financial crisis. We're on a precipice. We're in a crisis, and we have to understand how it came about. You have to understand monetary policy. You have to understand that you can't have excessive debt. You can't run up a debt. And this is the crisis. It's too much government, too much involvement, and that you have to cut back. But the answers aren't all that complicated either. If you do the right things, we could work our way out of this. But if we continue to do what we're doing, by both the leadership of both parties over these last 4 years, is more spending and printing money and bailing out people, believe me, we're going to go over the cliff. And I think that's what we have to work to try to prevent. So the economy is in shambles, but we can correct it by just sound economic policies, which are not complicated.
And let me turn you to another domestic policy issue, and that is you had been raising money lately on your website on the notion of ending the TSA. Most people know those as the guards at the airport that, you know, pat you down and, you know, go through your stuff. Your son obviously had a run-in with some TSA folks when he was trying to get on a plane. If you got rid of the TSA, what would you put in its place?
Well, it shouldn't be government. You know, the people who protect very dangerous chemical plants, they're private sources. You know, they have their police guards, they have their fences, and they have their security, and they do a very good job. The assumption that the government has to do this is the wrong assumption. I voted against the Department of Homeland Security and the TSA, and it's a bureaucratic monster. It totally voids the concept of the Fourth Amendment. Searches and prodding and poking, you know, with no permission, and they trap us into it. There's no way you can travel if you don't do it. So I've said, you know, when you look at some of these pictures of prodding groin areas and breast areas and all this, and old women having to take their clothes off, if we as a people are so complacent that we can look at that and say, oh, that's okay, they're making us safe, it doesn't make us safe. It undermines our liberties in a much better way of giving us security at the airports than accepting the bureaucrats and the politicians in Washington. That is totally unacceptable from my viewpoint.
Congressman Ron Paul, thank you for joining us today. We will see you along down the road.
This is the UFO News with Joshua Poet.
All right, Dirk, thank you very much. This is the UFO News for today. I have 4 good stories for you. First story comes to us from Examiner.com. This is Tracy Pierce article, Woman Photographs Dull Metallic UFO in Area 51. There's even a video included. According to information made available on January 27, 2012, a woman in Nevada allegedly photographed a UFO landing on Groom Lake earlier this month. Groom Lake is a salt flat used by the military as a runway for the Nellis Bombing Range test site airport located in the north area of Area 51, United Air Force military installation. The Canadian reported that the UFO was spotted hovering above a C-17, a military cargo carrier capable of carrying another aircraft on its roof. The USAF reportedly has aircraft similar to the flying saucer-shaped object seen in the photograph. The photo taken by the witness shows a dull metallic disc with bumpy or pitted surface floating just feet off the ground. No lights are visible on its exterior, but the picture was taken during the day, so the craft may be equipped with lights but just aren't visible in that photo. The identified flying object was seen above and behind the military plane from the viewer's vantage point near Area 51. Due to its location, the UFO in the object is likely a military aircraft or a prototype of some type. The photograph also raises the question of why a civilian would be close enough to Area 51 runway to take a photograph of military aircraft in the first place. Of course, there is also the possibility that the photo may be a hoax. This certainly isn't the first time a UFO sighting or other strange phenomena has been reported in the vicinity of the notorious Area 51. The area is well known for its connection to the Roswell UFO incident that took place in Nevada in 1947. Let's take a look at this video. See exactly the object that was seen. All right, we can Alright, here's where we are. We're trying to get to it here. Hold on a second. Alright, there we go. Alright, Here's the image we're looking for. You certainly have the military plane there, and this is the object in question. Very interesting indeed. What do you think that is? Do you think it's real? Do you think it's a fake? The one question that would come to mind is the source. I know that there have been other videos up there, third phase of the moon videos, that have been questioned. Doesn't mean that this is not real. It just means we need to question it like everything else we're questioning these days, because something may be a bit weird to it. Yeah, that was it. That's the sighting. Check it out for yourself, see what you think. Our next one comes to us from Russia. ScottWaringBlogspot.com. Colorful ring over Russia on the 23rd of January. Pretty interesting looking ring there. Halit Safin, a famous photographer in Ufa, January 23rd, took video of an unusual glow. He phoned a friend and said that in the sky above the street, in the Green Grove, Kuviana hours from 8 in the evening, flickers something unusual. Halit, a child fascinated by UFO, arrived at the place at midnight and filmed on camera lights with Shirofocusing lens. As the photographs drew his attention to the colors of the object, blue, green, red, a friend stayed in his car to follow the object. And I went home for a long lens to look what it is. The lens I brought to watch the stars 4 years ago. Here's the first time there is need to use it in practice. When Halit returned to his seal, glow in the sky is still maintained but dimly slightly. It looked like the lens of a neighboring stars. They shone like the object. Alright, let's get to the actual image itself. Okay. Let's jump ahead here. Alright, where's the glowing object in the sky? Pretty interesting. Very interesting indeed. Now, it's moving around an object that isn't exactly a perfect oval or anything, which is interesting. And we do have the Blue Beam project, which is out there, so this could be a holograph. That's something to consider, or some sort of plasma show coming off of it. Quite fascinating though. And the video is up, so you can take a look at it yourself, see what you think. Here it is zoomed in even more. Very interesting. Alright, check it out, see what you think. Our next story comes to us also from Scott Waring Blogspot. This is UFO passes over meteor crater Sedona. This is amazing. It is also the same shape as the color of the UFO that crashed in Needles, California, and then was recovered by the U.S. Air Force lift helicopter. Remember that back in 2008? If you don't, here's a link so you can refresh your memory. On January 9, 2012, a large bright green object was documented on camera. Flying from the south and traveling at high speeds in a steady horizontal pattern, the object appears to be heading directly to the north regions of the Navajo Hopi reservations. On January 21, 2012, an identical flying object was sighted from the exact undisclosed location in Sedona, near the Secret Canyon area. This New Year phenomenon was seen in Sedona and reported throughout the Southwest. Also note that this is the location of a meteor impact crater that is 570 feet deep and 1.2 kilometers across. This meteor hit the Earth between 20,000 and 50,000 years ago. Lots of metal fragments of the meteor have been found scattered along this location. Alright, let's take a look and see what we got here. This is from the 29th. Our object in question moving from right to left. And this is over Sedona on the Alright, so there you have it. Bright green object moving from right to left over Sedona, Arizona. Check it out, see what you think. Next story. Giant, massive, fiery UFO object near the sun. This was on the 28th. Now, we've certainly heard plenty of things on the sun. 2 days ago, a person keeping an eye on NASA's SOHO images caught something huge near the sun. The object is many times larger than Earth and seems to be reflecting the sun's light, which may indicate a metallic exterior. Its football-like shape is intriguing. Some might argue that the ship would be that big would be impossible. But if their technology is millions of years ahead of ours, then they probably had either robots create the ship over hundreds of years, or they may have grown it using biomechanic mix. Remember, they would basically live forever until an accident took their life. Illness and aging would not exist for them, so a few hundred years would be in a drop in the bucket. Alright, let's take a look and see exactly what this was on the 28th up by the sun. Alright. Let's get into the actual object at 3:19 p.m. Alright. Alright, the sun's moving back and forth for that dramatic effect, and there it is on the right-hand side. Alright, what is that? Well, it's kind of hard to really say what it is because it doesn't really look like the shape of anything. It looks like something very pixelated, or maybe even something that was cut out of the image itself. But it is definitely something that is up there. Maybe it is like that because it has some sort of field around it protecting it from the sun. I don't know. All I know is it's there and very interesting indeed. And our last story for the day, UFO story, comes to us from UFO Digest. Real-Time Abductions, Thoughts and Questions by Diane Tessman. I write this article with due respect for Chris Holly and her research. It is in no way personal in this response to her article, More Real-Time Abductees. My biggest concern regarding the 6 probable real-time abductees, are they completely of Irish descent? I ask this because if not, this could be an urban legend, or with racial or national implications, which were never valid. I lived in Ireland for 5 years, and as an American I was surprised that the Irish were not as blue-eyed as we Americans assume. The Celts and the pure Celt tribes were apparently fairly dark, perhaps having made their way from the Middle East. My boyfriend was black Irish. According to the Irish, that is, he had become hazel brown eyes and jet black hair. Green eyes were not usual, but you'd have to go a few kilometers in Ireland to find 11 blue-eyed people. The Vikings added their genes about 1,000 years ago, which have freckles, red hair, and brown eyes. Of course, there are blue eyes in Ireland, and very light skin. Very light skin is oddly more prevalent than blue eyes, in my humble subjective observation. Who knows why aliens would pick on Irish Americans? Cloning? Genocide? I say these negative things because that is the influence of the article and of the real-time abduction reports. The problem is, Irish Americans are often not all Irish. One might have an Irish surname, but when you trace your family tree, you might be a quarter German or half English or whatever. Both Germans and English are more blue-eyed than the Irish, I do believe. There are pure Irish-blooded people, of course, along the East Coast, Boston for instance, but Americans are a mixed-up bunch genetically, and I would wonder if the pure Irish bloodlines of the 12 abductees have been fully documented. Otherwise, I fail to see the importance of it. Do the aliens just want white people? If the aliens do want the Irish, that is astounding. The negative aliens might also be sorry they are working with 100% Irish because no one loves freedom more. However, I do have these questions before an urban legend of Irish cloning or Irish whatever gets started. The UFO field doesn't need more urban legends. 6 of the 12 abductees dropped out. But why? An abduction group, having overcome fear for some degree, then drop out because of fear. Perhaps in some of these cases the group was just not for them. The question comes to mind, is the fear eternal? Is the fear element so horrifically overwhelming that is it the only factor? Miss Holly is the one who decided these 12 are valid real-time abductions. If I understand it correctly, no going through the wall when asleep, no hallucinogenic encounters, just real-time. Is there proof that these real-time abductions happened? Unexplained scars. Of course, even those can be debunked sometimes. Physical evidence? I don't aim to be a debunker, for goodness sake. So, there's much more to this article. And I'm going to leave that to you. I'll finish one last sentence. It's just that the 6 abductees really dislike almost as a mass mind, those who lie about abductions. Is it wise to put all the eggs in their basket, though as absolutely valid abductions? Even so, as to mysteriously judge those who lie without examining each individual case. In other words, what criteria is there for judging these 6 as valid, or these 12? So, good questions. There's a link in this article so you can go and find out the origin or the first story that came about to see what you think by all of this. And that is our UFO news for today. Time to jump away for a song. I'll be right back in about 2-3 minutes. What if our government was responsible for some of the greatest crimes against this nation? Would you really want to know? These are big questions, but these questions deserve answers. It's time to demand the truth.
People shouldn't be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid.
9/11 was an inside job. Kennedy was killed by the CIA. Jimmy Carter saw UFO. Answers to secrets you need to know. So wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. The evidence is overwhelming. Step past your fear, take a look. Illuminati lies keep growing, but they're illusion from your eyes. And wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What would our founding fathers say if they were alive today? Must be turning in their graves. Redcoats are coming, Big Brother's watching. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. What if I land and two if I see? And I on the opposite shore will be ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm. Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. When a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Patriots arise. It's time to demand the truth. Okie doke, we're back. It is time to demand the truth, and we're going to start right off here with this first article. As you know, last week, on Thursday, Obama was subpoenaed to court, but Obama did not show up at the court. So it's raised a lot of questions with folks. Here's one of them. Will court allow Obama to be above the law? Message from Van Iron, a Georgia ballot challenge hearing attorney. Our president openly showed that he believes he is completely above the law. I wonder if the court even noticed its own death certificate. We will see in a few days. Fellow constitutionalists, one of my earliest childhood memories is of my parents talking about the Watergate scandal, Nixon and the Watergate scandal. I remember the newspaper headline, Nixon resigns. President Nixon's fight against court subpoenas made international news yesterday. Yesterday, President Obama, or last week, completely ignored a court subpoena and the world shrugged. Obama's behavior yesterday is even more disturbing than Nixon's. Nixon at least respected the judicial branch enough to have his attorney show up in court and follow procedure. Nixon's fight in the courts followed existing law. Nixon acknowledged the authority of the judicial branch even while he fought it. Obama, on the other hand, essentially said yesterday that the judicial branch has no power over him. He ordered his attorney to stay away from the hearing. He didn't get a petition. He didn't petition a higher court in a legitimate attempt to stay the hearing. Instead, he showed complete contempt for the entire judicial branch and the rule of law. Rather than respecting the legal process, Obama went around the court and tried to put political pressure directly on Georgia's Secretary of State. When that failed, he simply ignored the court branch completely. The rule of law and our three-branch system of government now hang in the balance. If the Georgia court issues a ruling on the merits and an order finding Obama in contempt of court, and if that contempt actually results in real punishment of some kind, then we still have a constitutional republic. If this doesn't happen, then Obama will have been rewarded for showing complete contempt for the judicial branch. Understand that the goal of the Georgia ballot was to have a court rule on the merits of the constitutional question. Does the term natural-born citizen in Article 2 of the Constitution require a presidential candidate to have two parents that were U.S. citizens at the time the candidate was born? Obama wants to avoid having a court rule on this question. That is why he didn't show up and ordered his attorney not show up. He was hoping that the Georgia court would either enter a default judgment rather than rule on his merits. If the court enters a default judgment, Obama will have succeeded in avoiding the constitutional eligibility question. He will then appeal the default judgment, get the appellate court to suspend the default judgment pending appeal, and then delay the appeal until after the primary. This is undoubtedly Obama's plan. If the Georgia court rules that the Supreme Court precedent must be followed and therefore Obama simply does not meet the minimum constitutional requirements to hold the office of president, then we will have at least succeeded in finding one court in the nation willing to do its job. If that court finds Obama in contempt of court, then we still have three viable branches of government. The Georgia court has the authority to do both of these things. The world should be holding its breath. Unfortunately, the world is apparently unaware that a great republic is on life support. The Roman Empire died a slow death. Its death was so gradual that a few people living at that time probably noticed the individual events that marked the death throes with the great empire. Apparently, the same is true of America. Yesterday marked a stunning turn of events in the constant power struggle between the three branches of our government. Our president openly showed that he believes he is completely above the law. I wonder if the court even noticed its own death certificate. We will see in a few days. I will certainly try to explain this to the court in our proposed findings of fact and the law that the court requested we file before February 5th. All of our encouragement and prayers have been greatly appreciated. There are needed even more over the next few weeks. This battle is far from over and has taken an importance beyond what we predict, which is astounding. Please tell everyone you know about Obama's contempt of the judicial branch. Please explain to them what it really means. Even those that agree with Obama politically and disagree with our ballot challenge should be shocked, appalled, and scared of Obama's contempt of the judicial system. In Liberty Van Iron, co-founder, lead counsel, Liberty Legal Foundation. Now, he makes an excellent point there. Obama is not above the law. Obama is just a jackass, is all that he is. He's in office, he's taking up time, and he's wasting the system. He's wasting what the system should be about on his own egomaniac ideas. He's not above the law, and if any American can justify his behavior, then you've got a big, big problem, and you need to go back and understand why his stepping up and not obeying the law is important, because that affects you and your family. And if you think it doesn't, well, open up your eyes, because you're sadly mistaken, and this is a very important thing. The president is not above the law. Therefore, he needs to be held accountable just like everyone else. Flip the situation around. Imagine that you got a subpoena and you didn't show up. Do you think that anyone could just shrug that off? Absolutely not. You would have a bench warrant and you probably would be arrested. So, is there any reason why this man in the office, who's been shown over and over to be a fraud, should be allowed to defraud the court, not show up, and it's okay? If you think that is okay, then you've got a problem. And the problem is your own lack of integrity. So go fix that and then come back to the table and participate in the game of American citizen. All right? Now, here's another article about this. Georgia wasn't the only one. Obama blocked and challenged from registering from Alabama state primary until eligibility is validated by court. If you thought the birther issue was in the past, you were wrong. At least in Alabama, a number of individuals in Alabama want a court to validate the fact that, in fact, Obama is eligible to be on the ballot for a Alabama state primary, which would allow him to run for re-election for president. Update. An Alabama court has announced that it will hear arguments as whether Barack Hussein Obama II is in fact eligible to appear on the state presidential primary ballot. Several Alabama citizens have filed a lawsuit within the Alabama Circuit Court to prevent certification of President Barack Obama for the 2012 Alabama ballot access, pending final hearing based on factual evidentiary hearings. The deadline for any candidate to register to appear on the Alabama presidential primary ballot is just days away, but by agreeing to hear the case, the Alabama courts have efficiently stalled any efforts by the Democratic Party to place Obama on the ballot. Well, there's much more to this. You can go check that out. But look, man, people are stepping up. Natural born citizen. You have to have two parents that are born in America. Okay? On the birth certificate that Obama put out, as fraudulent as it is, he still lists on there that his father's place of birth was Kenya. His father was not an American citizen. Therefore, by the definition of natural born citizen, he does not have two parents that were born in this country. Therefore, ding, 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 guess what? 1 + 1 = 2, and he does not get to be president because he is not eligible. So his being in office is only in there because there are those who apparently know this and are allowing him to be in office. As an American citizen, you should be outraged and stand up that this is happening. But a lot of you are out there sitting down calmly, apathetically doing nothing because a lot of you just don't really care, or so it seems. I know some of you care, but I meet people every day in the streets that really are clueless about anything that's going on in this world, and to those are the ones that I am addressing the I don't care issues, or the they don't care issues. Now, moving right along, Ron Paul's 1995 Oklahoma bombing newsletter. They don't want to go there. This is from JT Coyote Infowars. On Wednesday's radio broadcast, Alex reported a story on the most recent Ron Paul newsletter flap regarding the Oklahoma bombing. Alex said Fox News picked this up. Paul newsletter OKC was an inside job. This is Paul's writing. I can tell, ... and you get a grasp of it, ... No one knew what a false flag was. In the month of April, that week, April 26, 1995, he had a newsletter out saying that I think Paul should run with this. This got me thinking about what happened at the Colorado State Capitol the day of the Oklahoma bombing and in the days following. I was a senior intern for El Paso County State Senator Charles Duke, the father of the 10th Amendment state sovereignty movement, which was running full steam ahead at the time. So our office was essentially information central for the Patriot Network as the events of Oklahoma unfolded. We had experienced the spying antics of federal lobbyists in the State House ever since we passed H.J.R. 94-1035, the first 10th Amendment resolution in April of 94. They were keeping a stealthy eye on the growth of the 10th Amendment movement. A dozen or so states had already reaffirmed the 10th Amendment, putting the feds on notice that the states were calling a lawful halt to the increasing number of unconstitutional federal power grabs. Public notice was delivered to the President, Speaker of the House, and the Senate in Washington, D.C. as each state resolution passed. The feds were fully aware of the states that were lawfully up to. Fact is, state versus federal collision was exponentially approaching a 38-state critical mass. The day of the bombings, the phones and the fax machines in the Charlie's Capitol office rang constantly. Virtually every patriot organization, Liberty Newsletter publisher, Fax Alert Network, and other state legislators and hundreds of constituents from the districts were wanting information. During the last 2 weeks of April 95, there were over 1,500 return calls from the office to inquiries from all over the country. Charlie was called on the carpet by the Senate leadership for the phone bill that month. This too did not escape the notice the feds embedded spies under the Gold Dome. For the next few days, delivered pizza, catnaps, and coffee was on the bill of fare. Initially, majority of callers thought the bombing was a false flag to take the country's eyes off the Bath wacko atrocity hearings happening at that time. By Sunday the 23rd, the day of the Second Amendment rally at the Capitol's West Lawn, the motive for the false flag had taken shape. It became obvious by the Clinton media statements that it was clearly to demonize the 10th Amendment state sovereignty movement, the militia and the Second Amendment movement, and other constitutional patriot organizations and causes. And we're going to scroll down here, and the bottom line is this: Ron Paul was just starting his campaign when Oklahoma City was bombed. Being a strict constitutionalist, he was naturally wanting to know what other Constitution-supporting folks thought, many of whom were in the know regarding Oklahoma. The globalists must understand that if they push on this particular button in Ron Paul's background, they will be opening a box they'll be unable to close. It will spotlight their false flagging from the Gulf of Tonkin to 9/11, ensuring their complete exposure. All their pagan rituals and moneyed incantations will not save them. The veil will fall, revealing hundreds, if not thousands, of high-level perpetrators of mass murders and cover-ups, many in positions of power now as they were then, and many still within the reach of indictment. I'm with Alex on this when he said, I think Paul should run with this. It may just be a way to dress down the elite cabal, open it up, expose it, and stop their psychopathic, inbred, death-worshipping, neo-luminous coup, and take down America and the world. So it's going to be interesting to see where they're going to go with this. But yes, false flags have been going on for some time, and it takes brave people to point that out. Unfortunately, our country is not filled with a lot of brave people that are out there talking about it. A lot of people are afraid and brain dead. You know, it still amazes me to this day when I see people cheering. Like, I saw something the other day. It was Giuliani giving a talk. A gentleman, Bob Haskins, I believe his name, he went and he asked a question. What about World Trade Center 7? And it was hard to imagine that all of these people, these students there at the time of this rally, of this talk that he was given, started booing. They were actually cheering for Giuliani. They didn't want to hear the real evidence. People, you're too freaking brain dead out there. What's going on with you? Why are you believing the lies? Why don't you go look for yourself? You're being lied to. You're being railroaded left and right. You're being told, but you're still not paying attention. There's going to come a time when the shit's going to hit the fan, and it's going to be too late. You're going to be like a deer in headlights wondering what went on. And you're going to say, nobody told me what was going on. Well, that's not the truth, because there's a lot of people telling you something's about to go down. And it's getting serious. And when we have a president of the United States who is putting himself above the law, when you have bills being put in place to take away the freedoms and put Americans in prison, that's not a good thing. When there are FEMA camps that are being manned with soldiers and guards, that's not a good thing. When they want to censor the internet, that's not a good thing. Yet there are still those who are cheering because they don't know better, because all they're doing is listening to Fox and CNN and all the lies. Wake up, folks. Wake up. There's a big problem going on, and many of you are asleep out there, and many of you know many who are asleep. So for those of you who are awake, excellent. Wake up those who aren't, because I'm sure that you're equally as frustrated as I am to know all the people that are still sleeping and cheering for all of the corruption that's going on. There's no reason this corruption should go on. The Founding Fathers are rolling over in their graves, and if you think that that's acceptable, then maybe you need to question your patriotism on where you lie in this country. Now, very last thing before we get into our meditation today. This is about the Council on Foreign Relations. This is one part of a three-part deal, but this is going to give you a little background on some of the corruption that has occurred in this country that has made up who the United States is. And maybe by hearing this, you'll get some ideas on how to stop it.
The year is 1917, and Representative Oscar Callaway enters a disturbing statement into the U.S. congressional record. The statement reveals why J.P. Morgan interests hired 12 high-ranking news managers. The 12 were asked to determine the most influential newspapers in America. They were to figure out how many news organizations it would take to control generally the policy of the daily press of the United States. The 12 found it was only necessary to purchase the control of 25 of the greatest papers. An agreement was reached. The policy of the papers was bought, and an editor was placed at each paper to ensure that all published information was in keeping with the new policy. Soon, that policy would be defined by a front group formed by J.P. Morgan and his colleagues. In fact, Morgan's personal attorney was founding president of the organization, the Council on Foreign Relations. Today, the CFR maintains that its goal is to increase America's understanding of the world. However, the actual objective of this highly exclusive club is revealed by the rare admissions of the insiders themselves. In the early 60s, a Georgetown University professor collects information for a book favorable to the network of powerful men who founded the CFR. For 2 years, Professor Carroll Quigley is allowed to examine the confidential papers and secret records of this network. Quigley reveals that these men aim to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. In short, they seek total and quiet control of the entire world. And the CFR is their most visible conduit for carrying out that agenda. CFR members include America's wealthiest tycoons, as well as the highly placed elite in government, academic institutions, tax-exempt foundations, and the establishment media. Ruling Class Journalists, written by Richard Harwood, describes the CFR membership as the ruling establishment in the United States. The Washington Post article boasted that news reporters who are CFR members do not merely analyze and interpret foreign policy for the United States, they help make it. Who are these policymakers? Many of their faces are familiar. NBC's Tom Brokaw, CBS's Dan Rather, ABC's Barbara Walters, Jim Lehrer of PBS, William F. Buckley of National Review, media mogul Rupert Murdoch, owner of the giant multifaceted News Corporation. These media heavyweights, and many others like them, are members of the CFR. Powerful corporations are also invited to become members. At the close of the 20th century, CFR influence presided over far-reaching consolidations of media control. In 1995, CFR members Michael Eisner of Disney and ABC's Thomas Murphy merged their media empires. Soon after the merger, the Disney-ABC empire becomes a CFR corporate member. In the year 2000, the world's largest internet service provider, America Online, joins forces with Time Warner, one of the world's largest news organizations. The CEOs favoring the move are CNN's Thomas Johnson and Time Warner's Gerald Levin, both CFR members. Once again, another media giant is created under the shadow of CFR influence. Today, an elite handful of individuals define the agendas that are supported by the empire of establishment news.
So there you go. That gives you a little bit of a introduction of what's going on. But you can see the media from all the way back to 1917 has been bought. So if you're watching them, if you're paying attention to what they're saying, you're going to catch the lies. If you are turning on the mainstream news or the channels and programming that's out there, it's all controlled. It's all controlled, and the reason they are controlling it is because they believe that you are too dumb to know that you are being controlled. That is how it works. I am not the one who is saying that you are too dumb. They are thinking that you are too dumb. I'm just telling you what they're thinking. So when you watch these programs, the reason they're trying to slide things by is because they don't think you're bright enough to catch their lies. So they lie over and over and over again. Obama doesn't show up in court because he thinks that you're not savvy enough to catch that and to do anything about that. And as long as people remain apathetic and don't do anything about these injustices, they're going to keep happening. But if you really do, and I'm talking to you as a parent, someone who's in their 40s or 50s or 30s or 20s, if you have kids and you care about your kids and you care about their future, then you need to pay attention of what's going on. Maybe even ask your kids what they're learning in school and find out if they're actually learning anything of value. Maybe you need to take more concern about some of these laws and these bills because your kids are going to be the ones that are going to be affected by these things. Not you personally maybe at this time, but your kids will, because these laws are going to keep going and imprisoning them. And if you don't want to see your kids have to go through all those problems of a world that's getting worse and worse, you need to understand. You got to step out of denial, though, and you got to stop believing all the lies, because I don't know how that happened, but believing the lies seems to be the thing that is in vogue these days. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But as I always say, earthlings are strange creatures, and I don't always get it. All right? Here's what we're going to do now. We're going to do our meditation, end out the show, a little prayer, see if we can bring some good vibes to all of this. And what we're going to focus on today is getting rid of fear. Because the reason that people make decisions that they make is based on fear these days. The government is having a war on terror. That means they're trying to terrorize you, make you afraid. And if you're afraid, you'll make bad decisions. So if we remove the fear, guess what? We can think clearly and we won't have to make the bad decisions because we're not making decisions based on fear. We're making decisions based on love. And that's a much different way to go. So let's focus on this meditation, on getting rid of fear and bringing love all around. All around. So close your eyes. Close your eyes and relax. I want you to imagine that you are seated in a room, and the room is dark, there aren't any lights on, and that you are just seated there. And as you are seated in this dark room, all around you, in the darkness, I want you just to take a moment and feel the darkness. Feel any fear that might exist within this darkness. And as you explore the fear and feel its presence, you understand that fear itself is not part of the darkness. Fear is just an idea that's in your mind about what is in that darkness. So by clearing out that place in your mind that is holding on to that fear and replacing it with love, you start to see the darkness in a new perspective. That fear goes away. And as the fear goes away and is replaced by love, you start to see things clearer. And the room becomes lighter and brighter. Imagine as you're walking down the path, you see others along the way, letting go of fear in their lives. And as they let go of the fear, it's as if this dark cloud of energy releases from them. And as it releases out into the universe, it dissipates into the light. And without this fear, seeing clearly is not a problem. Making good decisions is not a problem. Just imagine your life without all of the fears. Imagine what kind of decisions you would make if they didn't have any fears that were guiding your decisions. Now, just holding that idea in mind, let's bring our energy and attention back to the present moment. On the count of 3. 3, coming back to the present moment filled with confidence. 2, coming back to the present moment filled with faith. And 1, coming back to the present moment happy, healthy, and whole. Happy, healthy, and whole. And there you have it, my friends. That's our show, our prayer, our meditation. We've made it through the beginning of the week. I'll be back tomorrow with more news and information. So go out in the world. Be safe. Spread the love, my friends. Spread love around so the fear dissipates around the world. That way we can all see through clear eyes as opposed to confusion and darkness. I'll be back tomorrow. Talk to you then. Peace. I'm out of here.